The comparison started before I could walk. Derek was born first. 3 years older. 3 years of being the center of attention before I arrived and, according to family legend, ruined everything. Derek was such an easy baby, Mom would say at every family gathering. Then we had Jason and forgot what sleep was. Derek was athletic. Captain of every team. I preferred books and building things with my hands. Derek was charming, social, the life of every party. I was quiet, observant, more comfortable with small groups. By the time I was 10, the family narrative was set. Derek was destined for greatness. We'd see. Derek went to Duke on a partial athletic scholarship. Played lacrosse. Joined the best fraternity. Graduated with a finance degree and immediate job offers from 3 major firms. Chose the one in Manhattan. Started at $95,000 plus bonus. I went to a state school 2 hours from home. Studied hospitality management. A choice that made Dad wince. You're going to school to learn about hotels? It's a respected program. Cornell has one too. But you're not going to Cornell. No. I wasn't going to Cornell. I was going to a state university with a practical program that would teach me the business I was obsessed with understanding. I'd been fascinated by hotels since I was 16. Not staying in them, we couldn't afford luxury travel, but understanding how they worked. The operations, the guest experience, the revenue management, the way a well-run property felt like a machine and an art form simultaneously. I worked through college. Front desk clerk at a Hampton Inn. Learned guest services. Then night audit. Then breakfast attendant when they needed coverage. I took every shift I could, learning every role. Derek came home for Christmas my sophomore year driving a new Audi. Talked about his Manhattan apartment, his expense account, his networking dinners at restaurants I'd only seen on TV. Jason's working at a Hampton Inn, he told his college friends, laughing. Living the dream. I was living my version of a dream, actually. Learning everything I could. But nobody asked about that. After graduation I stayed in hospitality. Got hired as an assistant manager at a mid-tier hotel in Charlotte. Salary, $38,000. Worked 60-hour weeks. Learned operations management, revenue optimization, staff training, crisis management. Everything that happened in a hotel, I wanted to understand it. Derek got engaged to Courtney, a corporate lawyer he'd met at a company mixer. Her family had money. Old money, the kind that came with a family crest and stories about ancestors on the Mayflower. The engagement party was at a country club. Open bar, past hors d'oeuvres, a violinist. I drove down from Charlotte wearing my only suit, which was slightly too big because I'd lost weight from work stress. Jason. Derek grabbed me in a hug that felt performative. Everyone, this is my little brother. He works at a hotel. I'm an assistant manager at. He's in the hospitality industry, Derek told his friends like he was translating for them. Courtney's father, Richard, shook my hand. Hotels. Interesting. Derek tells us you work the front desk. I'm in management, but I did start at the front desk. Good to work your way up. Character building. He said it kindly, but I could see him calculating my net worth and finding it wanting. Over the next 3 years I moved up. Assistant manager to senior manager. Moved from Charlotte to a better property in Atlanta. Salary climbed to $67,000. I was learning high-end operations now. Luxury hospitality. The 4-star and 5-star world where details mattered and service was an art form. I was also saving everything. Lived in a studio apartment. Drove a 10-year-old Honda. Wore the same rotation of work clothes. Every extra dollar went into savings and, increasingly, into investment accounts. Because I had a plan. Derek made senior analyst, then associate, then VP. His salary climbed into the multiple 6 figures. He and Courtney bought a house in Westchester. 3 bedrooms, professionally decorated, the kind of place featured in home tours. I bought my first property at 29. A struggling boutique hotel in Asheville that was 3 months from foreclosure. Used every dollar I'd saved, $180,000, plus a business loan that terrified me. Spent a year turning it around. Fixed operations, retrained staff, renovated key areas, rebuilt the reputation. Sold it 2 years later for a 280% profit. Nobody in my family knew. They thought I was still working at hotels. I was 32 when I bought my second property. Then a third. Small luxury hotels, bed and breakfasts, boutique properties that were underperforming but had potential. I had a system now. Identify properties with good bones and bad management. Acquire them. Fix operations. Renovate strategically. Build the brand. Either keep them profitable or sell at significant profit. By 35, I owned 7 properties across 4 states. My management company had 43 employees. My net worth was approximately $23 million. My family thought I was a hotel manager making maybe $70,000 a year. I didn't correct them. There was something liberating about their underestimation. No one asked for money. No one had expectations. I could build my business empire while they focused on Derek's achievements. Then Derek announced the wedding. Big wedding. Destination-ish. A luxury resort in Virginia wine country. 200 guests. Weekend event. The wedding of the century, according to Mom's weekly texts. The venue was the Belmont Estate Resort. I received the invitation 4 months in advance. Heavy cardstock hand calligraphy, probably cost $40 per invitation. The Belmont Estate Resort. I owned the Belmont Estate Resort. I'd acquired it 18 months earlier for $8.4 million. A stunning historic property that had been criminally mismanaged. Spent $3.2 million renovating. It was now the highest-rated luxury resort in Virginia wine country. Booked at 89% capacity year-round. Average room rate, $1,850 per night. The wedding coordinator working with Courtney and Derek had no idea I was the owner. My properties operated under a management company name, Riverside Hospitality Group. I kept an extremely low profile. Only the general managers and my executive team knew what I looked like. I RSVP'd yes to the wedding. 3 weeks before the event, Mom called. Jason, we need to discuss the hotel situation. What situation? Well, Derek reserved a room block at the Belmont Estate for family. But the rooms are very expensive. $2,000 per night for the wedding weekend. Okay. Jason, that's $6,000 for 3 nights. Plus they have mandatory resort fees, dining minimums, all these extras. It'll be close to $9,000 total. I can handle it, Mom. She laughed, not unkindly but like I'd said something naive. Honey, be realistic. That's more than you probably make in a month. We found a nice budget motel about 8 miles away. The Countryside Inn. $110 a night. Much more appropriate. More appropriate for what? For your budget. We understand, sweetie. Not everyone can afford luxury. I never said I couldn't afford it. You don't have to pretend with us. We know hotel managers don't make that much. There's no shame in being practical. I sat in my office, the top floor of a renovated textile mill in Charleston that served as my company headquarters, and looked at my computer screen showing real-time occupancy rates across my 7 properties. Sure, Mom. The Countryside Inn sounds fine. Oh good. I'm so glad you're being sensible about this. Derek and Courtney will be so relieved. They felt terrible about the cost but they really wanted the Belmont Estate. They wanted the resort I owned. Perfect. 2 weeks before the wedding, Derek called. Hey Jason. Mom told me about the motel situation. It's fine. Look, I'm not trying to be a dick but I wanted to give you a heads up. The Belmont Estate is really upscale. Like really upscale. The dress code for dinner is business casual minimum. The spa requires reservations weeks in advance. Everything is expensive. I'll keep that in mind. I just don't want you to feel out of place. Maybe stick to the motel restaurant for meals? The Belmont Estates restaurant is like $80 per entree minimum. Noted. And obviously you're invited to all the wedding events. But if some of the pre-parties are too pricey, no one will judge you for skipping. Appreciate the consideration, Derek. After I hung up, I texted my general manager at the Belmont Estate. Thomas, I'll be attending the Morrison Bennett wedding next weekend. Maintain confidentiality about ownership. I'll check in at the Countryside Inn under my name. Monitor the wedding party for any issues. His response came immediately. Understood, Mr. Rivera. Should I reserve your usual owner's suite just in case? Yes, but keep it off the books. I'll decide day of whether to use it. The wedding weekend arrived. I drove to Virginia in my normal car, a 3-year-old Lexus ES 350. Nice but not flashy. Loaded my modest suitcase into the trunk and made the 4-hour drive. I passed the Belmont Estate first. The long tree-lined driveway, the historic mansion gleaming white in the afternoon sun. the professionally maintained grounds, the discreet parking area for luxury vehicles. I'd overseen every detail of the renovation personally. It was perfect. Kept driving to the Countryside Inn. It was exactly what you'd expect for $110 a night. Aging strip motel off the highway. Parking lot with weeds growing through cracks. A flickering neon sign. The room smelled like artificial air freshener trying to mask decades of cigarette smoke. The Wi-Fi barely worked. The bed was lumpy. The AC rattled. I unpacked my wedding clothes, hung them in the questionable closet, and sat on the worn bedspread checking my phone. 17 emails from various property managers. Revenue reports showing we were up 31% year-over-year. 2 acquisition opportunities requiring review. An interview request from a hospitality industry magazine. I handled it all from the countryside and while my family stayed at the property I owned. The welcome dinner was Friday evening at the Belmont estate. I arrived at 6:45 p.m., parking my Lexus among the Mercedes, BMWs and Teslas filling the lot. The estate looked perfect. My facilities team had done exceptional work. The gardens were immaculate. The outdoor lighting created a magical ambience. Everything precisely as I'd approved in the design plans. I walked into the main reception hall. Crystal chandeliers. Original to the 1920s building, restored at significant cost. The parquet floors refinished to gleaming perfection. Fresh flowers everywhere, arrangements that probably cost $600 each. Derek and Courtney held court near the bar. Derek wore a custom suit that probably cost $3,000. Courtney's cocktail dress was designer, her jewelry substantial. I wore a J.Crew suit I'd owned for 4 years. Clean, appropriate, unremarkable. Jason. Derek spotted me. You made it. I accepted his hug. Congratulations. Isn't this place incredible? Worth every penny. The rooms are insane. Our suite has a fireplace, a soaking tub, a private balcony. $2,000 a night but totally worth it. It's beautiful. How's the Countryside Inn? He said it sympathetically, like asking about a terminal diagnosis. It's fine. Well, hey, at least you're here. That's what matters. Come get a drink, open bar tonight. One of the perks of paying $85,000 for the wedding package. I knew the actual package cost $127,000, but I didn't correct him. The bar served top-shelf everything. I ordered a bourbon. A $40 pour that Derek didn't pay for since it was included in his package. The family gathered. Mom and dad, aunts and uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Everyone dressed in expensive clothes, talking about their expensive lives, celebrating this expensive wedding. I found a corner and observed. Jason. Courtney's father, Richard, approached with a bourbon of his own. Good to see you. How's the hotel business? It's going well. Still managing that place in. Where was it? Atlanta. I'd left Atlanta 6 years ago, but still in hospitality, yes. Good. Honest work. Not everyone needs to be a VP like Derek. He clapped me on the shoulder. The world needs people to run the hotels, not just stay in them. He laughed at his own observation and moved on to talk to someone more interesting. Dinner was served. A 5-course meal I'd personally approved when reviewing the Belmont Estate's catering contracts. Every dish executed perfectly. My culinary team was exceptional. I sat at table 14, near the back, between Derek's college roommate's girlfriend and Courtney's second cousin twice removed. The important people, Derek's business colleagues, Courtney's family, the wedding party, sat up front. At table 1, Derek stood to give a toast. Talked about his journey. Meeting Courtney, building his career, buying their house, living the dream. Everyone applauded. No one mentioned me. I hadn't expected them to. After dinner, the party moved to the terrace. More drinks, desserts, mingling. I stood by the balustrade overlooking the gardens, thinking about the landscape design decisions I'd made during renovation. The lighting levels, the plant selections, the sight lines. Jason. Mom appeared slightly tipsy. Are you having fun? It's lovely. Isn't this place amazing? Can you imagine staying somewhere like this regularly? Derek and Courtney are so blessed. It's very nice. Maybe someday you'll be able to afford a place like this. If you work hard, maybe become a general manager or something. I was the owner, but, maybe. That's the spirit. Dream big. She patted my cheek and wandered off to join the other mothers, all comparing notes on their successful children. I checked my phone. Text from Thomas, my general manager. Mr. Rivera, the Morrison party has lodged 3 complaints today. Guest services documented everything per protocol. I typed back, what kind of complaints? Room temperature, minibar pricing, spa availability. Standard grievances but increasingly aggressive tone. Staff reports Mr. Morrison has been demanding special treatment, citing the wedding package cost. Document everything. Maintain professional service standards. No exceptions. Understood. The evening continued. Dancing, more drinks, more celebration. Derek and Courtney in the center of everything, radiating happiness and success. I left around 10 p.m. Drove back to the Countryside Inn. Sat on the questionable bed and reviewed acquisition documents for a property in Savannah. Saturday morning, I returned to the Belmont estate for the wedding ceremony. 2 p.m. start time. I arrived at 1:45, parking in the overflow lot. The ceremony space looked perfect. White chairs arranged in precise rows on the south lawn. Flower arrangements that had cost $23,000. A string quartet playing Vivaldi. The ceremony arch draped in fabric and roses. $8,000 for that installation alone. I sat in the back row. The ceremony was beautiful. Courtney looked stunning. Derek cried during his vows. Richard walked his daughter down the aisle like he was delivering a queen. Everyone sobbed appropriately. After the ceremony, guests moved to the cocktail hour while the staff transformed the ceremony space into the reception area. I knew the logistics intimately, had reviewed the timeline with Thomas 3 times to ensure flawless execution. The cocktail hour featured past hors d'oeuvres, multiple bars, a raw seafood station and a jazz trio. Guests mingled on the terrace. I found a quiet spot near the fountain. Jason. Uncle Mark appeared. Hell of a wedding, huh? It's very nice. Derek really made something of himself. That VP salary, the house in Westchester, and now this wedding. Kid's got it figured out. He's done well. You're doing fine too, Mark added, the way you compliment a child's macaroni art. Hotels are important. Someone's gotta manage them. True. Maybe Derek can give you some career advice. Help you move up the ladder. Maybe. He wandered off. I checked my phone. Another text from Thomas. Additional complaints from Morrison party. They demanded late checkout without fees, complained about parking distance from building, requested comp spa services. All denied per standard policy. Mr. Morrison requested to speak with ownership. I smiled and replied, not yet. Maintain protocol. The reception began. Grand ballroom, capacity 240, renovated at a cost of $1.4 million. Crystal chandeliers I'd had specially restored. A dance floor that had required structural reinforcement. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds. Dinner was exquisite. Filet mignon, Chilean sea bass, vegetarian Wellington. Wine pairings that cost more per bottle than most people's weekly grocery budget. I sat at table 19 this time. Even farther back. Between distant relatives who spent most of dinner on their phones. The toasts began. Best man talked about Derek's ambition. Maid of honor talked about Courtney's grace. Richard gave an emotional speech about his daughter and his successful new son-in-law. Everyone applauded. Clinked glasses. Celebrated. I ate my $280 plated dinner and thought about Monday's conference call with potential investors. Around 8 p.m. I noticed a commotion at table 1. Derek was speaking animatedly to one of the servers. Mom had joined the conversation. Then Courtney's father. The server looked distressed and walked quickly toward the service corridor. I watched, waiting. 5 minutes later, Thomas appeared. My general manager. Impeccably professional in his suit. He approached table 1 with 2 security staff members. I couldn't hear the conversation from table 19, but I saw the body language. Derek gesturing. Thomas remaining calm. Richard pointing at something. Mom looking confused. Then Thomas gestured across the ballroom. Toward table 19. Toward me. Every head at table 1 turned. Thomas began walking through the reception hall. The security team followed. They were heading directly to my table. The band had stopped playing. Conversations died. 200 guests watched as the general manager crossed the room. Thomas stopped at my table. Mr. Rivera, I apologize for the interruption during the celebration. I stood slowly. What seems to be the problem, Thomas? The Morrison party has requested an immediate meeting with ownership regarding multiple service complaints and demands for special accommodations. I see. What specifically? Thomas consulted his tablet. Complaints about room temperature, minibar pricing, parking proximity, spa availability, checkout policies and resort fees. They're demanding full refunds on incidental charges, complimentary service upgrades and late checkout without fees. They've also expressed dissatisfaction with staff responses to their requests. Derek had reached us now. Jason, why is the manager talking to you? Mr. Morrison has questions about hotel policies, Thomas said smoothly. No, I have questions for the owner, Derek said. I've spent $127,000 on this wedding and your staff has been completely inflexible about simple requests. I want to speak with whoever owns this place. You are, Thomas said calmly. Silence. What? Derek said. You're speaking with the owner. Mr. Jason Rivera is the owner of the Belmont Estate Resort. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Derek stared at me. That's not funny. It's not a joke, I said quietly. I acquired the Belmont Estate 18 months ago. Thomas serves as general manager under my direction. Mom had arrived now. Jason, what is happening? I own the hotel, Mom. I have for a year and a half. Courtney appeared, still holding her bouquet. You own this place? Yes. Richard pushed through the growing crowd. This is the Belmont Estate. This property is worth. He couldn't finish. Approximately $14.7 million current valuation, I supplied. I paid $8.4 million at acquisition and invested $3.2 million in renovations. The ballroom had gone completely silent. 200 guests staring. Derek's face had gone from red to pale. You own a multi-million-dollar resort. This and 6 other properties. I run a hospitality management company. Riverside Hospitality Group. 7 properties across 4 states. 43 employees. Annual revenue around $31 million. But you. Mom couldn't form words. You stay at budget motels. You drive a regular car. You never said. You never asked, I corrected gently. You assumed I was a struggling hotel manager. You told me the countryside inn was more appropriate for my budget. I didn't correct you because it was easier than explaining. Thomas cleared his throat. Mr. Rivera, regarding the complaints? I looked at Derek. Let's address them. Thomas says you've demanded refunds on incidental charges. What charges specifically? Minibar, premium Wi-Fi, spa services, parking, Derek said weakly. All clearly disclosed in your booking contract. What else? Late checkout without fees. Standard policy is checkout by 11 a.m., late checkout by request with fees depending on occupancy. We're at 94% occupancy this weekend. Late checkout would prevent us from preparing rooms for incoming guests. We spent $127,000 on this wedding. Derek protested. You spent $127,000 on a comprehensive wedding package that included ceremony space, reception venue, catering, bar service, accommodations for the wedding party and coordination services. All of which have been provided exactly as contracted. Incidental charges are separate. That's standard hospitality industry practice. Courtney was crying now, her wedding makeup running. You're really going to charge your own brother extra fees? I'm going to enforce the same policies I enforce for every guest, I said calmly. That's how you run a successful property. Consistent standards. Richard looked like he might faint. You let us think you were nobody. I let you assume what you wanted to assume, I corrected. You asked if I worked at hotels. I do. I own them. You just didn't ask enough questions to learn that. Derek found his voice, though it shook. This whole time. 9 years. You've been building this and we had no idea? You weren't interested. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject to your achievements. After a while I stopped trying. We would have listened if we'd known you were successful. Would you? Or would you have just treated me differently because of the money? Like you're all treating me right now. The crowd of guests had grown. Everyone watching this family drama unfold at what was supposed to be an elegant wedding. Thomas held up his tablet. Mr. Rivera, for the record, do you approve the requested accommodations? Late checkout, refunded charges, complimentary upgrades. I looked at my brother, at my parents, at the family that had spent 9 years dismissing everything I'd built. No, I said clearly. All charges stand as contracted. Standard checkout time applies. No exceptions. But we're family. Mom said desperately. Exactly, I said. Your family. You spent 9 years thinking I was a failure while I built a $31 million business. You put me in budget motels while you stayed in luxury hotels I own. You gave me advice about climbing the ladder while I owned the entire building. And you never once asked real questions about my life. Dad had tears in his eyes. We didn't know. You didn't care to know, I corrected. There's a difference. You were comfortable with your version of me, the struggling little brother who made Derek look better by comparison. Questioning that narrative would have been uncomfortable. Derek sat down heavily. This is Jason. You're actually rich. I'm successful in my industry, I said. I built something meaningful. Whether that makes me rich is subjective. Your net worth, Richard said weakly. With 7 properties. Is private information, I said firmly. But since everyone's so interested, approximately $23 million, most of it tied up in property equity and business assets. The number seemed to echo through the silent ballroom. Courtney made a small sound like she'd been slapped. You're worth more than my parents. Again, most of it is illiquid. But yes, probably. Uncle Mark had pushed to the front of the crowd. All those times I gave you career advice. Told you to learn from Derek. I remember. Derek makes excellent money, I interrupted. His success is legitimate. He's a VP at a major firm. That's genuinely impressive. His career has nothing to do with mine. They're different paths. But you're a millionaire, Mark said, like testing the word. Yes. Thomas was still standing patiently. Mr. Rivera, shall I return to my duties? The kitchen needs final approval for dessert service timing. Yes, Thomas. Proceed as planned. And Thomas? Make sure Mr. Morrison's final bill is itemized completely. Every charge clearly documented. Of course, sir. Thomas departed with the security team. The crowd slowly dispersed, guests returning to their tables, whispering furiously. I remained standing at table 19. Derek hadn't moved. Just sitting there staring at nothing. Mom approached carefully like I might break. Jason, can we talk? Privately. There's nothing private to say. You know now what I do. What I've built. If you want a relationship going forward, it has to be based on reality. Not the comfortable fiction you preferred. We love you, she said, crying now. You love the version of me that didn't challenge Derek's position as the golden child. I'm not interested in being that person anymore. I picked up my phone and wallet. I'm going to head out. Please enjoy the rest of your reception. The dessert course is exceptional. I approved the menu personally. Where are you going? Mom asked. Probably back to the countryside inn. Maybe I'll upgrade to my actual suite here. Haven't decided. You have a suite here? Derek asked hollowly. Owner's suite. Penthouse level. 1,800 square feet, private terrace, full kitchen. I keep it available when I'm visiting properties. I started walking toward the exit. Jason. Derek called. I stopped, turned. He stood up, walked over slowly. I'm sorry. For all of it. For never seeing you. For never asking. For treating you like you were less. Thank you. Can we fix this? I considered it. Maybe. But Derek, I don't need your validation anymore. I spent 9 years building something extraordinary without your support. I did it anyway. If we rebuild a relationship, it has to be because we genuinely want to know each other. Not because you're impressed by my bank account. I want to know you, he said, and he sounded genuine. The real you. Not the version we invented. Then call me next week. Actually ask about my work. Listen to the answers. We'll see if we can build something real. I left the ballroom, walked through the lobby I'd designed, past the front desk where my staff maintained perfect professionalism, and out to my car. My phone buzzed. Text from Thomas. Your owner's suite is prepared if you'd like to stay, sir. complimentary champagne and the good scotch in the bar. I smiled and typed back, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Please have housekeeping prepare the suite." I drove back to the countryside in one last time. Packed my bag, checked out, and drove back to the Belmont estate. The night manager checked me in personally. "Welcome home, Mr. Rivera. Penthouse suite is ready." "May I say, sir, what happened in the ballroom tonight? The staff are calling it legendary." "Just setting some records straight. The whole team is proud of you. You built something incredible here." I took the private elevator to the penthouse level. The suite was perfect. Panoramic windows overlooking the estate grounds. Custom furniture, luxury finishes, every detail exactly as I'd specified during renovation. I poured myself 3 fingers of 30-year scotch and stepped onto the terrace. Below I could see lights from the ballroom. The reception continuing. My family celebrating Derek's wedding at the property I owned, finally understanding what I'd been building while they'd been busy dismissing me. My phone buzzed throughout the night. Messages flooding in. "Derek, I really am sorry. Can we talk tomorrow? Mom, please don't hate us. Dad, we're so proud of you. We should have said that 9 years ago. Uncle Mark, I'm an idiot. Forgive me." I read them all. Didn't respond yet. Tomorrow would be soon enough. I stood on my terrace looking at my property, thinking about the journey that brought me here. Employee number 1 at a Hampton Inn to owner of 7 luxury properties. $38,000 salary to $23 million net worth. And I'd done it in silence. Without validation. Without support. Without anyone believing in me except myself. That made it sweeter. The next morning I had breakfast in my suite. Thomas brought the newspaper and coffee service personally. "The Morrison party checked out at 11 a.m. sharp," he reported. "All charges paid in full. No additional complaints." "Good. Your brother asked the front desk for your room number. We declined to provide it per your standing privacy instructions." "Thank you, Thomas. Will you be staying longer, sir?" "I'll head back to Charleston this afternoon. Please prepare the standard ownership report, occupancy rates, guest satisfaction scores, revenue analysis. I'll review this week." "Of course. And sir, if I may say, watching you own that moment last night was the most inspiring thing I've seen in 20 years of hospitality." I smiled. "Just enforcing standards, Thomas. Same as always." I checked out at noon, drove back to Charleston and returned to my regular life. Monday morning I was in my office reviewing acquisition documents for the Savannah property. My phone rang. "Derek." I considered not answering. Then picked up. "Jason." "Hey, Derek. Can I actually ask about your work? Like really ask? Not assume or dismiss or compare. Just learn about what you've built." I leaned back in my chair looking at my wall of property photos. 7 hotels, each one a story of transformation. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." We talked for an hour. He asked real questions. I gave real answers. It wasn't perfect. Years of dismissal don't heal in one conversation. But it was a start. And that was more than I'd expected. Because the truth was I didn't need them to understand. I'd proven everything I needed to prove. Not to them. To myself. And that was worth more than any wedding at any luxury resort. Even one I owned.